A sports festival for Muscovites and guests of the Russian capital. The FIFA World Cup brought together millions of people to see Moscow and fall in love. Having visited Russia once, they stay here and live, start a family and build a career.
Starting a school of a capacity of 800 children from scratch has been a wonderful opportunity for me. And
we'll also tell you about a unique sports complex that can be found only in the Russian capital.
It's the best, most innovative sports complex in the world.
Hi, I'm John Harrison. Now, as you probably know, Russia hosted the World Cup this year. 32 teams came here from all over the world, and millions of football supporters and tourists came here to see what was going on. And how did Moscow welcome the fans? That's what we're going to be talking about in this program. Hello, Dmitry.
Hello.
As far as I understand, the Luzhniki Olympic complex is the largest sports complex in the country, even in the world. Could you tell us a little bit about it? How was it built? Who needs it? And why?
The Luzhniki Sports Complex was built in 1956, and I'd say that the whole world needs it. The clearest evidence of that is, according to FIFA, last year's World Cup was the best and most successful one of all. And this complex is needed to get Muscovites involved in sports and fitness. Anyone can find here everything they could ever need to become active in sports. But in addition to that, Luzhniki is also a beautiful park where you can simply go for a walk. Everyone who lives in a big city needs that from time to time.
And what purpose does this complex serve today?
Stretching across 156 hectares, it's a unique sports complex that accommodates many sports facilities. And there will be even more in the coming future. Currently, we are building and planning to open, by the end of 2019 or in the early 20s, the largest tennis center in Russia and in the entire world, as well as one of the best swimming centers. It will offer both sports facilities such as 10 50-meter swimming pools and an indoor water park with a retractable roof. It's the largest stadium in all of Russia and one of the largest in the world. And this state-of-the-art stadium allows hosting any types of sport competitions as well as various entertainment events.
165 hectares, you said?
156.
155, 156, that's a huge area.
In the center.
I didn't have enough time to see all of it. What kinds of sports are going on here?
Absolutely everything. There isn't even one single sport that isn't available here. We offer everything from street workouts, inline skating and skateboarding to football, volleyball and tennis. And soon, we're going to open some new facilities which will add even more sports activities such as wrestling, boxing, karate, competitive swimming. There's going to be everything. It'll be hard to find any sport that won't be possible here.
As far as I know, you held some sort of birthday celebration here right before the World Cup.
That's right.
But how did the World Cup itself turn out?
It was literally the best World Cup in history. And that's not just my opinion as an insider. People who saw the event from the outside are also saying that. The organization of it all was at the highest level, mostly because it was planned so well, down to the tiniest detail. Many, if not all agencies and services of the Moscow government and the federal government participated.
What else is going on here? I mean, besides big championships like the World Cup?
We offer all kinds of events. This year we've already held a giant concert which brought more than 60,000 people. It was the concert of Imagine Dragons. And next year there will be 3 concerts at the large sports arena: Metallica, Bon Jovi and Muse.
Metallica?
Besides those, we hold major public events almost every month. This includes winter and summer season opening ceremonies and Moscow City Day, which is usually attended by hundreds of thousands of people. Our sports complex is living a truly full life, so to say.
That was very interesting. Thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you very much.
It was such a beautiful event. It was as if Moscow was having a carnival every day. The streets were actually full of football fans. Among them, Mexicans, Brazilians and Argentinians stood out. The World Cup transformed the city and gave it a special charm. Nikolskaya became the main street of the championship. On some competition days, the street was absolutely packed with people celebrating. Even people not at all into sport got infected with football fever. Even after the championship had already started, they tried to go out and buy tickets, preferably to the main arena, Luzhniki, where the opening ceremony took place. The championship was memorable for the remarkable performance of the Russian national team, which at the very beginning defeated Saudi Arabia with a score of 5-0 and continued its winning streak right on up to the quarterfinals. For the first time since 1970, Russia reached the quarterfinals by beating one of the strongest teams in the world, the team from Spain.
Это история. 1 июля 2018 года. Мы так хорошо себя никогда не чувствовали.
The Russians conceded only to the Croatians, but not without putting up a good fight. The opposing team was able to grind out a victory only during the final penalty series. Then, both local fans and foreign guests showed their support for the Russian team. Fans carefully got ready for each match. For example, before the Iceland-Argentina game, several thousand Scandinavian fans held a cheering rehearsal right in Zaradia Park. Fortunately, the park was able to easily accommodate such a huge number of international guests.
According to Yandex, Zarya Park was the most popular search query among international guests visiting Moscow for the World Cup. And I must say that it was sort of a test for Zarya Park, because those 1.5 million visitors in July, during the championship, it was actually a record month for the park, and we welcomed almost 500,000 foreign fans here at Zarya.
Special fan zones were created throughout the city. There, everyone could watch a game on the big screen. Almost every day, pop stars were giving concerts there. Just like during the Sochi Winter Olympics, every fan visiting Moscow for the World Cup received a so-called fan ID. It allowed them to enter the country without a visa, use public transport free of charge, and visit museums and restaurants.
Perfect, was perfect. Everybody very friendly. And I repeat, it was very quickly, fast, and I don't know, and all the people, hey, say hi, hey, high five. I don't know, so friendly, so fast, and very nice. The fan ID is the best.
The idea of fan IDs proved itself so well that the Qatari government has decided to use it during the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Numerous volunteers helped foreign guests find their way around the Russian capital. They were always ready to help, to tell everything about local points of interest or to show them the way to the stadium. By the start of the international competition, 400 English-speaking attendants were there to help guests in the Moscow metro. International fans were amazed by the high level of organization, as well as the high level of cleanliness of the city. They all said that Moscow had prepared perfectly for the World Cup, and they openly declared their love for Russia. During those days, many foreigners actually rediscovered Russia for themselves, and some of them have literally fallen in love with the place. People bought Russian flags or t-shirts with the Russian tricolour on them, and some even painted Russian national symbols on their faces or bodies.
Where are you from? You see my color, where I am from.
Имидж Москвы очень меняется.
Moscow's image is changing. The FIFA World Cup was a perfect example of this. It opened the eyes to people coming from both East and West to what Russia really is. People were simply amazed. We sometimes joke that for many foreigners, Moscow is a very gloomy place where bears are walking down the streets. But this stereotype is actually not so far from the truth. People from both East to West know very little about Russia and about Moscow. There are lots of stereotypes out there.
According to experts, the money spent on the World Cup was one of the most profitable investments in Moscow's history. The Russian capital alone was visited by 4.5 million fans, half of them from abroad. Fans coming from some countries were afraid of possible fights with local fans, which often happen during major football competitions. But there was not even one single incident. According to FIFA President Gianni Infantino, this championship was the best in World Cup history, and it will have a beneficial effect on the future development of football in the country. Russian President Vladimir Putin also noted that Moscow and all of Russia can be proud of the results of the competition. 2018 was a very successful year for Moscow's hospitality industry. Inbound tourism increased by almost 10%. Nikolai Alexeyevich, my first question is, the World Cup's over now, the great euphoria of the Games is finished. Is there anything left of that in Moscow now?
It's great that such an event took place in Moscow, and for one entire month, Moscow became the center of this amazing celebration of football, an unofficial capital of football, so to speak. And this was not because Moscow is the capital of our country, but rather because 12 games were played here, including the opening game and, of course, the final game at Luzhniki Stadium. And of course, because of its location, Moscow was the main transport hub of the championship. And most guests coming to the country arrived in Moscow and then went on to other cities for the World Cup. We raised the bar pretty high in terms of hospitality, organization, and everything else related to welcoming guests to our city, including foreign visitors. And there were a lot of them during the World Cup. Guests who have continued coming here even after the championship, and their number has increased significantly. They're eager to see what Russia and Moscow have to offer. It's all because we shattered the world image of Russia, and Moscow in particular, as a bad and dangerous place, and put a dent in those stereotypes about bears and terrible streets. So people who came to Moscow from highly developed countries were more than surprised by the city's infrastructure and the openness and warm-heartedness of its residents.
И самое главное, душевностью и открытостью самих горожан.
And apart from pleasant memories, what else has Moscow gained from the World Cup?
Москва несколько уникальный в этом случае.
Moscow is somewhat unique compared to the other 10 World Cup cities,
другим 10 городам, а вот вся
in the sense that its entire infrastructure was created according to a master plan and government programs for the development of the city, which had been thought up many years ago. But when Moscow was chosen to host the FIFA World Cup, just as Sochi was chosen to host the Winter Olympics before that, the primary goal for all the people involved in the preparations was not merely to impress everyone, but to hold these events at the highest possible levels. As a participant of many Olympic Games, both as an athlete and a spectator, I can say with confidence that there have been no other Winter Olympics like the ones held in Sochi, or any World Cups like the one held in Moscow.
What plans does the department have for this winter season?
Скоро будут открыты
New ice skating rinks and ski tracks will open soon. We have many events planned for this coming winter season, and we'll be happy to welcome both Muscovites and guests of the Russian capital, and families, and sports enthusiasts at the sports facilities and courts we've created for them.
A lot of foreigners come here and they decide to stay here for a long time, some forever. They kind of fall in love with the place. It's a big city, a modern city. It combines innovation and tradition. Locals say that it's a city of possibilities. Now, what do foreigners think about all this? Let's find out. It's like magic. The audience can't believe their ears. The legendary American MMA fighter Jeff Monson steps into the ring to the sounds of the Russian national anthem. People who've come to see the snowman, as they call him, fight the Sambo champion Denis Khomkin rise from their seats. Out there in the audience is Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Jeff the Snowman Monson!
Even a broken leg couldn't keep the snowman from winning. Jeff has repeatedly declared his love for Russia. It's impossible to confuse him with other fighters. His body is covered in numerous tattoos. Among them are portraits of Engels, Lenin and Marx. After a trip to Volgograd, he got another one, an image of the Motherland Calls monument, and he always speaks with great warmth about Russia.
What interested me was the history, the Russian Revolution, like all these different cultures and peoples and ethnicities coming together and living in harmony in one area. And you know, World War II, fighting the Nazis and the Battle of Stalingrad and all these. My dad was a big World War II buff, so I learned a lot about this growing up, so I always wanted to come to Russia.
A few more years will go by and the life of this popular fighter will grow even more hectic.
Every man, tribulate not to serve side.
2016, it seems that back then no one would have guessed that the whole country would be talking about that. He would decide to move away and start learning Russian. Then he received Russian citizenship. He would star in music videos and commercials, and then he would once again decide to radically change his career. Former child psychologist turned MMA celebrity Jeff Monson would become a member of the Russian parliament, a representative of the people of Krasnogorsk, where he lives today. Next year, Mr. Monson plans to finish his fighting career and start coaching children. Those kids are students of Brooks International Private School, which has recently opened in Moscow. What do they dream of while carelessly chasing the ball across a football field? Maybe some of them will aspire to become famous athletes like Jeff Monson. Students of this school have everything to help them fulfill their athletic potential: a gym and a football field right on the roof of the school building. And not only children from Russia attend this school, there are many exchange students here as well, and they have every chance to build a life here in Moscow or in any other city around the world. But why would they need to go anywhere else? Those who come to Moscow to find new opportunities and stay here for the rest of their lives are confident that there's no other city like Moscow. Coach and teacher Michael Moore, who has trained his students for competitions between English-speaking schools, made his choice long ago. He moved from Ireland to Russia, even though he could have gone to any other European country. Michael loves football and is a big fan of Lokomotiv.
Russia's always been of interest to me. It's just such an amazing country, and Moscow is such an amazing city. So I think the reason that we wanted to come to Russia or Moscow is because it can offer so many different opportunities, especially for sport and physical education.
Head of Lower School and Early Years Foundation Stage Mark Broom prefers swimming to football. Though recently it's been getting increasingly difficult for him to find time to go to the pool or to read fairy tales to children at the school library. He has his hands full all the time now. After all, Mr. Broom is one of the school's founders. He had to put in a lot of effort to open up this school. Mark's been living in Moscow for the past 7 years and he plans on staying here. He's confident that Moscow provides great opportunities for natives and newcomers alike. It's a city where major deals are taking place every day and a place that provides favourable conditions for investments or starting a business.
In my position now as head of early years and lower school here at Brooks Moscow, starting a school of a capacity of 800 children from scratch has been a wonderful opportunity for me, and for anyone in the teaching profession, it's very rare to have this opportunity.
Even though Mark believes that not everyone can oversee such a large-scale project and be responsible for the lives and future of hundreds of children, we know that this isn't the limit. It's only the beginning for the school's head, Mark Broom, sports coach Michael Moore, and MMA fighter turned MP, Jeff Monson. I'm talking to Valentina Bontempi, who owns the Moscow pizza chain Pizzeria. He can share a lot about starting a business for making pizza in Moscow. Good afternoon, Valentina. I've heard so many good things about your pizza restaurants.
Hello.
Here's my first question for you. Why Pizzeria?
It's actually very simple. We wanted to find a good name for a restaurant that serves delicious pizza. It's all about marketing, of course. We took the Italian word, pizzeria, with 2 Z's, replaced one of the Z's with an N, and we got Pizzeria. We liked the word, so we stuck with it. I think it's easy to remember.
Okay, let's talk about the World Cup. How was business on game days? Did people come to your restaurants?
Yes. It was a great time. I can proudly say that our place is highly popular among people.
How do you make delicious pizza in Moscow?
We carefully select and import different types of flour and other ingredients that are used to make pizza. The most important one is a special sourdough starter. It has a unique taste. We have a factory here in Moscow where we prepare everything needed to make pizza.
But why did you decide to start a business in Russia, in Moscow, and not at home, back in Italy?
My plan was to open and create something myself, instead of just working for someone else. I decided to start a business in Russia during the hardest time, the time of sanctions. The currency rates went up. And I decided to open a restaurant because only at that time did I have a chance to start a business in Russia.
Do you feel that there are a lot of opportunities here to do what you're good at and start a business? Do you feel any restrictions? But they always say that starting a business here is hard, it's a nightmare.
Starting something new is always hard, I think. It's probably even harder back in Italy these days. But if you want to do it, just do it. So I'm like Forrest Gump in that way.
If you want to do, you do. For that.
And the last question, what would you like to tell people who are thinking about investing in Moscow, but something's putting them off? They think maybe it's too dangerous. They're worried about security, about this, that, and the other. Maybe they're worrying too much.
I think that the current situation here in Russia is perfect for foreign investors. The biggest risk here is the unstable currency. But still, investors always analyze any possible risks. So I think a country like Russia, a city like Moscow, it's very good for investments. It's hard to invest in Italy right now.
Thanks very much indeed, Valentina, for your time. You've got a great place here. It's cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, ciao.
So how did you like the sporting side of Moscow? Perhaps your opinion about this city might have changed just a little bit. I'm John Harrison. See you next time.